The crowd fell silent as Marcus Winters stepped onto the stage, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. 10 years ago today, I was thrown out of an airport with my sick daughter in my arms. Now I own the place. The audience erupted in applause as Marcus gestured toward the gleaming private terminal behind him. Life has a way of coming full circle when you refuse to give up. If you're moved by stories of resilience, justice, and the incredible power of a parent's love, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories that will restore your faith in humanity. The rain pounded mercilessly against the terminal windows as Marcus Winters paced the crowded waiting area, his 5-year-old daughter Lily cradled against his chest. Her small body burned with fever, her breathing labored and uneven. The flight to Boston, where the specialist who could potentially save her life waited, had been delayed for the 3rd time, and Marcus was losing hope with each passing minute. "Please," he begged the airline representative at the counter, his voice cracking. "My daughter needs to get to Boston Children's Hospital. The doctor is waiting for us. There has to be something you can do." The woman behind the counter glanced at Lily's flushed face and then back at her computer screen. "I'm sorry, sir. All flights are grounded due to the storm. There's nothing I can do." Marcus ran his hand through his disheveled hair. He hadn't slept in 36 hours, not since Lily's condition had suddenly deteriorated. The rare autoimmune disorder that had taken his wife 2 years ago was now threatening their daughter, and the small-town doctors had been brutally honest. Without specialized care, Lily wouldn't survive the week. What about a charter flight? Is there any private service that might be able to fly in these conditions? Marcus asked desperately. The woman's expression softened slightly. "You could check with the private aviation terminal. It's on the other side of the airport, but I don't think." "Thank you," Marcus interrupted, already turning away. He wrapped Lily's blanket more securely around her tiny frame and hurried through the terminal, ignoring the curious stares of other stranded passengers. The private aviation terminal was a stark contrast to the crowded main concourse. Sleek, quiet, with plush seating and attentive staff, it catered to a clientele Marcus had never belonged to. As a high school history teacher raising a daughter on his own, private jets existed in a world he only glimpsed in movies. A stern-faced man in an expensive suit looked up from behind the reception desk as Marcus approached, Lily whimpering softly in his arms. "Can I help you?" the man asked, his tone suggesting the opposite. "I need to charter a flight to Boston immediately," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "My daughter needs urgent medical care. Money isn't an issue." It was a lie, money was very much an issue. Marcus had already mortgaged his house to pay for Lily's treatments, but he'd figure something out. He always did. The man's eyes narrowed as he took in Marcus's rumpled clothes and the sleeping child. "Sir, this is a private aviation facility. Our clients book well in advance, and the minimum charter costs start at—" "I don't care what it costs," Marcus interrupted. "Please, just tell me if there's a plane available." The man's expression hardened. "Sir, I don't think you understand. Our services cater to a certain caliber of client. Perhaps you should return to the main terminal and—" "My daughter is dying," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "The specialist in Boston is her only hope. Please." The man stood up, his patience visibly wearing thin. "Security," he called over his shoulder, then turned back to Marcus. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're disturbing our clients." Marcus glanced around the empty lounge. "What clients? There's no one here." "Get the hell out," the man hissed, as 2 security guards approached. "Before I have you removed." Marcus felt something break inside him, a dam of grief, fear, and now rage. "My daughter is dying, and you're worried about disturbing your non-existent clients? What kind of person are you?" The security guards each took one of Marcus's arms. He clutched Lily tighter, terrified of jostling her. "Please," he begged, "she needs help. She's all I have left." "Not my problem," the man said coldly. Remove him. As the guards began to escort Marcus toward the door, a commotion outside caught everyone's attention. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, they could see a sleek private jet taxiing to a stop directly in front of the terminal. The receptionist's demeanor instantly changed. He straightened his tie and smoothed his hair. That's Mr. Calloway's jet. He wasn't expected until tomorrow. The security guards loosened their grip on Marcus, distracted by the arrival of what was clearly an important client. Marcus stood frozen, Lily's fevered breath against his neck, watching as the jet's door opened and a tall, distinguished man in his 60s descended the stairs. Alexander Calloway was a legend in the business world, a self-made billionaire who had transformed a small tech startup into a global empire. His face regularly appeared on the covers of business magazines, and his philanthropy was as renowned as his business acumen. As Calloway entered the terminal, shaking rain from his coat, his sharp eyes immediately assessed the scene before him, the security guards, the hostile receptionist, and the desperate father holding a clearly ill child. "What's going on here?" Calloway asked, his deep voice cutting through the tension. The receptionist rushed forward. "Mr. Calloway, sir, we weren't expecting you until tomorrow. This person was just leaving. He's disturbing the peace." Calloway ignored him, walking directly to Marcus. "Is your child all right?" Marcus swallowed hard. "No, sir. She needs to get to Boston Children's Hospital. She has the same condition that took her mother, and there's a specialist there who might be able to help her, but all flights are grounded because of the storm." Calloway studied Marcus's face, then looked down at Lily. Without hesitation, he turned to the receptionist. "Prepare my jet for immediate departure to Boston." The receptionist's mouth fell open. "But sir, the weather." "My pilot can handle it," Calloway interrupted. "And call ahead to Boston Children's. Tell them we're bringing in an emergency case." He turned back to Marcus. "What's your daughter's name and condition?" "Lily Winters," Marcus said, stunned by the sudden turn of events. "She has Takayasu arteritis, a rare autoimmune disorder that—" "I know what it is," Calloway said quietly. "My wife had it." The two men's eyes met in a moment of shared understanding. "Thank you," Marcus whispered, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Calloway placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You don't have to. Now let's get your daughter to that specialist." As they boarded the luxurious jet, Marcus couldn't help but notice the receptionist's shocked expression. The man who had told him to "get the hell out" just moments before now stood frozen in disbelief as Marcus and Lily were personally escorted by one of the wealthiest men in the country. The flight to Boston took less than an hour in Calloway's state-of-the-art jet. Throughout the journey, the billionaire sat across from Marcus, occasionally asking questions about Lily and offering reassurances. There was something in his eyes, a deep sadness that Marcus recognized all too well. "You said your wife had Takayasu arteritis," Marcus said softly as Lily slept in his arms, her breathing slightly easier thanks to the oxygen the flight attendant had provided. Calloway nodded. 20 years ago. The treatments weren't as advanced then. He paused, looking out the window at the storm clouds they were flying above. "That's why I established the Calloway Foundation for Autoimmune Research. We've funded much of Dr. Patel's work, the specialist you're going to see." Marcus stared at him in disbelief. You fund Dr. Patel's research? Life has a strange way of connecting the dots, doesn't it? Calloway said with a sad smile. Perhaps this was always meant to happen. When they landed in Boston, an ambulance was waiting on the tarmac. Dr. Patel himself had come to meet them, alerted by Calloway's team. "Mr. Winters," the doctor said, shaking Marcus's hand as the paramedics carefully transferred Lily to a stretcher. "We've been reviewing Lily's medical records. I believe we can help her." Marcus turned to thank Calloway, but the billionaire waved him off. "Go with your daughter. That's where you need to be right now." The next 72 hours were a blur of hospital corridors, medical terminology, and prayers. Dr. Patel's experimental treatment protocol, funded by the Calloway Foundation, was Lily's best hope. Marcus barely left her side, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair by her bed, holding her small hand through the worst of it. On the third day, as Marcus dozed in the chair, he was awakened by a gentle touch on his shoulder. Alexander Calloway stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use this," he said, offering one to Marcus. "You're still here?" Marcus asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I've been checking in daily," Calloway admitted. "Dr. Patel says Lily is responding well to the treatment." Marcus nodded, tears welling in his eyes again. "They told me this morning that her inflammation markers are down significantly. They're cautiously optimistic." Calloway sat in the chair beside him. "I'm glad." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching Lily's peaceful sleep. "Why did you help us?" Marcus finally asked. "You didn't know us. You could have just walked past." Calloway was quiet for a long moment. 20 years ago, when my wife was diagnosed, we were turned away from 3 different specialists because we didn't have the right insurance, the right connections. By the time we found someone willing to treat her, it was too late." He looked at Marcus. "I promised myself that if I ever had the power to prevent that from happening to another family, I would." Marcus nodded, understanding completely. "When my wife was diagnosed, we were living in a small town with limited medical resources. By the time we got her to a specialist..." He trailed off, unable to finish. "That's why I started the foundation," Calloway said. "And why I've been thinking about something else since I met you and Lily." "What's that?" "The way you were treated at that airport terminal was unacceptable," Calloway said, his voice hardening slightly. "It's a symptom of a larger problem in our healthcare system. Access is determined by wealth, by connections, by geography. It shouldn't be that way." Marcus couldn't disagree. "But what can be done about it?" "I have an idea," Calloway said, "but I'll need help from someone who understands both sides of this issue, someone who's experienced the desperation of being denied care and who has the compassion to want to change the system." Marcus looked at him questioningly. "I want to establish a medical transport network," Calloway explained. "Private jets, helicopters, ground transportation, all dedicated to getting patients to the specialized care they need, regardless of their ability to pay." "That would be incredible," Marcus said. "But the cost?" "The Calloway Foundation will provide the initial funding," Calloway said. "But we'll need someone to run it, someone who understands what's at stake." He looked directly at Marcus. "Someone like you." Marcus was stunned. "Me? But I'm a history teacher. I don't know anything about running a foundation or medical transport." "You know what matters," Calloway said simply. "The rest can be learned." 6 months later, Lily was in remission. The experimental treatment had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. She was back in school, her energy returning, her smile brightening Marcus's world once again. And Marcus had a new job. As the executive director of the Calloway Emergency Medical Transport Initiative, he oversaw a growing fleet of aircraft and vehicles dedicated to transporting patients to specialized care facilities across the country. The initiative had already helped dozens of families in situations similar to his own. 1 year to the day after that rainy night at the airport, Marcus found himself back at the private aviation terminal. This time, he wasn't being thrown out, he was there to oversee the dedication of the initiative's newest acquisition, a state-of-the-art medical transport jet named Lily's Hope. The receptionist who had ordered him to "get the hell out" was long gone, fired by Calloway himself after the incident. In his place was a compassionate woman who understood that emergencies didn't check bank accounts before striking. As Marcus stood on the tarmac beside Alexander Calloway, watching Lily cut the ribbon on her namesake aircraft, he marveled at how completely his life had changed in just 1 year. "I never thought I'd be back here like this," Marcus admitted to Calloway. The billionaire smiled. Life has a way of coming full circle when you refuse to give up. 10 years passed. The Calloway Emergency Medical Transport Initiative grew into the largest nonprofit medical transport organization in the country, with a fleet of 30 aircraft and partnerships with major hospitals nationwide. Marcus Winters, once a desperate father begging for help, was now recognized as a leading advocate for healthcare accessibility. Lily, now 15, had blossomed into a confident young woman with her mother's smile and her father's determination. Her experience had inspired her to pursue medicine, and she was already taking advanced science courses, dreaming of becoming a researcher like Dr. Patel. Alexander Calloway, now in his 70s, had gradually stepped back from his business empire to focus on his philanthropic work. He had become like family to Marcus and Lily, a surrogate grandfather who never missed a birthday or school event. And then came the opportunity that brought everything full circle. The private aviation company that had once thrown Marcus and Lily out was struggling financially. Years of poor management and declining reputation had left it vulnerable, and it was up for sale. "You should buy it," Calloway suggested during one of their regular dinner meetings. Marcus laughed. "Very funny." "I'm serious," Calloway said. "The Calloway Foundation would back you. Think about it. You could transform it from a symbol of exclusivity to a hub for your medical transport network." The idea took root in Marcus's mind. What better way to complete the circle than to transform the very place that had rejected them in their hour of need? 3 months later, the deal was done. Marcus Winters, with backing from the Calloway Foundation, became the owner of the private aviation terminal where he had once been told to "get the hell out." His first act as owner was to designate a special area of the terminal for emergency medical transport cases, a comfortable, private space where families in crisis could wait while transportation was arranged, with staff trained to handle medical emergencies and provide emotional support. And that brought him to today, 10 years after that rainy night, standing on a stage in front of the renamed terminal, now called Winters Medical Aviation Center, addressing a crowd gathered for its grand reopening. 10 years ago today, I was thrown out of this airport with my sick daughter in my arms. Now I own the place, Marcus said, his voice strong with emotion. Life has a way of coming full circle when you refuse to give up. He gestured to Lily, now a poised teenager, and Alexander Calloway, who stood proudly beside her. This center represents more than just a business acquisition or a personal victory, Marcus continued. It represents a transformation, from exclusivity to accessibility, from rejection to welcome, from despair to hope. Every person who comes through these doors, regardless of their background or bank account, will be treated with dignity and compassion. As the crowd applauded, Marcus caught Lily's eye. She was smiling, tears streaming down her face, understanding better than anyone the significance of this moment. "My daughter Lily is healthy today because one man chose compassion over indifference," Marcus said, nodding toward Calloway. "He taught me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars but in the lives we touch and the differences we make. That lesson has guided everything we've built here." The new Winters Medical Aviation Center would serve as both a traditional private aviation facility and the headquarters for the now International Medical Transport Initiative. Its profits would fund free and reduced-cost medical flights for those in need, creating a sustainable model that combined business with compassion. As Marcus cut the ribbon and officially opened the new center, he couldn't help but think of how differently things might have turned out if Alexander Calloway hadn't arrived at precisely the right moment 10 years ago. How many lives would have been lost? How many families would have been broken? But that was the power of compassion. It created ripples that extended far beyond the initial act, touching lives in ways the giver could never anticipate. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Marcus found himself standing alone in the exact spot where he had pleaded for help a decade earlier. The space was transformed now, warm and welcoming, but the memory remained vivid.